getting this same feeling of you need to tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, you know how it is. People get shot every day.
Right.
Right. So it's like, how is my life different?
Mm-hmm.
But the creator talk to you and say, it's different because I say it's different.
Wow.
And so the message that I tell may not reach somebody, but the message that you tell may.
Right.
And so just because somebody else wrote about their life and their tragedy doesn't mean that it's going to hit the person that the creator needed to hit.
Right.
And so it's necessary sometimes for you to tell your story,
Yeah.
even if people don't heard 1,000 stories like it.
Mm-hmm.
But like someone told me, you have a fingerprint of your own. That fingerprint is unique to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so is your life story. So just because everybody else has a fingerprint, don't mean that you can't use your fingerprint to change somebody's life.
Malik's First Job Podcast, here to answer any questions that y'all ask. Financial literacy and resources. Parents and young people becoming bosses. CEOs, future leaders, entrepreneurs. Conferences and boardrooms getting sponsors secured. If you want generational wealth, Brooklyn's own Kerwin Phillip with information to help. Malik's First Job Podcast. Malik's Podcast. Brooklyn's own Kerwin Phillip. Kerwin Phillip. Malik's First Job Podcast. Brooklyn's own Kerwin Phillip. Generational wealth.
All right, greetings everyone. How you doing? This is Kerwin Phillip here with another episode of the Malik's First Job Podcast, where we discuss leadership, entrepreneurship, and financial literacy for parents and teens. Today, we got another great episode with a great guest, a good friend of mine, author Matthew Mealy, right? I'm gonna let him kind of talk about, his background, but he just recently released his first book. It's called Peace from Broken Pieces. So we're going to get into the book about, what motivated him to write the book and some of the key lessons that the book speaks on. So, hey, Matt, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Hey, thanks for accepting the invitation.
No doubt.
So tell us, about yourself and tell us about your book.
So my name is Matthew Mealy, the third. I grew up in the Richmond area. I started out early years of going to Cobb Elementary, went to Albert Hill Middle, and then to Thomas Jefferson High School. Later went to college, took 2 years of college, and that was just, more to get my feet wet. I knew that I had to get away from just roaming. So I had to come up with a plan for my life. So I went to college for 2 years, worked in the field that I studied for a short time, and then I decided, hey, I want to do something different.
Okay.
So right now, I still have a job, right? Even as I work towards my other aspirations in life, I know it's very important to keep some type of consistent income as I work towards those dreams. And I was inspired to write the book because I had gone through some challenges that could have changed my life for the worse, but I learned how to turn those negatives into a positive, and I wanted to be able to share those with other people.
Okay. Now, do you want to kind of go into some of those, like some of the challenges that you went through?
Yeah,
That kind of went into the book?
definitely. So, so growing up, I grew up in a what you would call a full family where you had your mom, your dad, your siblings, and I went through changes even with having mom and dad there,
Okay.
and then later on I end up getting into you know hung up into some things that had to do with peer pressure.
Right.
I went through seeing domestic violence. I went through sexual abuse. Um, I went through going through the stage of, joyriding, the whole drug situation of, um, you know, you're convinced that, hey, part of being a man is learning how to hustle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then my friends started going to jail and stuff, and you know, they were saying, "Hey, you're not a man until you learn how to do a bid."
Right.
So you were hearing all these different things, and you know, you're not a man until you had your first piece, and all these cliche things that you would start to hear. That as you
Right.
get older, you feel like, "Hey, this is not the ticket."
Right. 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 Exactly. Exactly. So, I guess how hard was it for you to kind of take all those experiences and put it into the book?
So I would say I've always constantly been in this phase of growing.
Mm-hmm.
Always been self-reflective, but I had some moments where I would have anger, and that is what led me to my self growth, because I had moments when I was angry and I had to figure out what was it about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had to really take time to process the things that were going on in my head. And a lot of the things that I had going on in my head were um, things that I had tried to push to the back of my mind.
Okay.
And so, um, as I started to question myself about why I had the anger, um, why I had the lack of confidence, all those things came about because sometimes when you grow up and you have so many negative things start to happen in your life early,
Mm-hmm.
you start to lose your confidence, you start to lose your trust, and then your ability to get to know yourself um, is kind of pushed back. And so I had to get to know myself too.
Okay.
So the only way to get there is through understanding that you need to go from survival mode. And the only way to get from survival mode is to understand the things that you have been through so that you can grow from them.
Okay. 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 So I guess you kind of go into, like you say, you're angry, had a low self esteem, things of that sort.
Mhm.
What was the root of that? Like, where did that anger stem from? Was that like a particular incident or a series of incidents? Well, what exactly was it?
It was a series of incidents. So one of the things that I can share with you is um, it was the things that a lot of kids deal with today in our neighborhoods, right? So one of the first things you start to deal with is um, sometimes you deal with how your parents view you as an individual.
Okay.
So in my household, my father was more of he had more of a militant um, demeanor. Um, he grew up in an area called Churchill. It was like 11 to 12 siblings, and he was the oldest of those siblings.
Okay.
And his mother, um, you know, had a relationship with his father, and then later on, she had someone else that she had ended up meeting and spending time with. But for the most part, there was a lot that his mom did on her own. And
Okay.
so my father was taught a lot of survival skills from his mother, and he became a product of his environment. And so, because he was the oldest, he was taught to be tough. And sometimes being tough doesn't mean that you actually grow properly. And
Okay.
so, as he got older, and now I'm coming into the world, he had also now gone into the military, dealing with the pressures of life of paying bills. Now he has a wife. I have two sisters, and then I have also actually three half sisters.
Okay.
And so my dad, he had a lot on his plate. And so for a man that never took the time to properly heal from his own wounds and the things that he had dealt with in life, the one thing he wanted was for me to be tough like him.
Okay.
And so as a child, we don't necessarily show those attributes right away. You grow into having that harder outer shell. And so when kids are born, I believe the kids are a little closer to the source, so you're a little bit more loving, a little bit more playful. And so for my dad, he really wanted to see me be a little bit tougher.
Okay.
So my mom was always a very loving person, always reinforced love. So I had a balance there. Now, during the times when, I would leave the house and go outside, I was stuck with the same issues that any other kid would be stuck with, right? You have peer pressure.
Right.
You have your friends that you go and play and have fun with. You're riding your bike. You're playing in dirt. You're doing all kinds of different stuff. And
Right.
Those were great times. But then there was other times when you had people that were in the neighborhood that was doing all kinds of stuff, from hustlers, number carriers, drug dealers, boosters, all kinds of things that were going on around you. And so as you start to see these things, I started to pick up bits and pieces of everybody else's life as I was growing. In the process of me growing, other things start to happen, such as, the crack era hit. And I saw where we had thriving families. So now thriving families were being broken down to individuals trying to just get something for themselves.
Right.
They wanted something for themselves. They didn't really care about how the next person was doing. The communities were being broken down.
Exactly.
And I saw it hit close to home. I saw cousins of mine, like beautiful women in my family, went from attracting men and having men take them out to dinner and spending time and going on dates, to now these women are standing on the corner tricking.
Right.
And so as I started to see that, it breaks down the fibers of that piece that you have as a child, right? And so then in my own household, I started dynamics until my mother and father started to break down. And that grew into some basic complaints. And then later it turned into domestic violence.
Wow.
And so I had to grow through that. As a kid, I would see my parents fuss about things that I really didn't understand, right? A bill here, a bill there, something didn't work properly. And you would start to see that they'll blame those things on each other, right? And you're a kid looking and you really don't quite understand those things. And so they didn't have proper tools for how to grow through that. Or one wanted to grow and the other one didn't want to grow.
Okay.
Then when you get substance in there, right? I truly believe that my dad had started to drink a little bit more. There may have been the occasional use of cocaine, because, you would see little things like the little spoons and different things like that you would see around the house.
Right.
And so you start being exposed to a lot of different stuff. And it was like, then I had an older sister that, she would have, different boyfriends. And so you get exposed to things by being around these people.
Right.
Then I had some times in my life when, as I got older, when your parents at work, somebody got to watch you.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody got to be there with you. And a lot of times you think you know the people that you have around your kids, and you really don't know.
Right.
And so that started to lead into other things.
Mm-hmm.
So that led into not only levels of manipulation, but that led into sexual abuse.
Wow.
And so as I started to go through those things, as a child, I never said anything about those. I just
Okay.
kind of kept it inside. And so as I grew older
Mm-hmm.
and I'm out here hanging with my friends, it's easier now for me to get into some stuff because now I feel devalued.
Wow.
So a lot of times when you see these kids getting into stuff, at some point, these kids have felt devalued, right?
Right.
Um, they don't know that their lives have a greater value.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand what's really happening to them, right? Excuse me. So you'll see these kids go through all these different changes, and somebody from the outside may say, "Well, these kids are wild," or these kids don't care about nothing today. But you don't know
Right.
what these kids have been subjected to. So where
Right.
some kids can stay mild and meek and kind of grow, some become a little bit more aggressive.
Right.
Some start to act out of character. And
Mm-hmm.
some really become so docile and meek that it's almost as if they can't survive in society.
Right. Today is a great day to start your own podcast. Whether you're looking for a new marketing channel, have a message you want to share with the world, or just think it would be fun to have your own talk show, podcasting is an easy, inexpensive, and fun way to expand your reach online. Buzzsprout is hands down the easiest and best way to launch, promote, and track your podcast. Your show can be online and listed in all the major podcast directories like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google products, and more within minutes of finishing your recording. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners, and the team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping you succeed. Join over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. Let's create something together. Follow the link in the show notes and let Buzzsprout know that we sent you, and that will get you a $20 Amazon gift card if you sign up for a paid plan and help support our show. Thank you very much, and let's be great podcasting together. Peace. Right. So for yourself, like, did you ever seek counseling, from all the stuff that you experienced and what stuff you've been through?
So, so in later years, I did. So
Okay.
when I got into, I would say into my late 20s, early 30s.
Mm-hmm.
But what I did do was I used to have conversations with my mom about a lot of stuff. So my mom would leave an open door so that I could talk to her about things that was bothering me.
Right.
Now, it took to later years before I started talking to her about the sexual abuse. I talk a little bit more about that in my book, but it was, I would talk about the things that I was dealing with on the outside, like, some of the peer pressure, things like that, or my levels of anger. But she never knew what the anger stemmed from until later. And then in my early teen years, so at the age of 15, I dealt with a tragic situation where I had gotten shot.
Oh, wow.
So on top of dealing with all the other problems that I was dealing with, Now I was fighting for my life.
Wow.
And this really took me to a stage of feeling really broken, feeling sorry for myself. I wanted to really, I wanted to retaliate in anger, but I had a sense, I knew a sense of who I was, right? I knew that I was not this person that was animalistic. I knew I wasn't this person that wanted to hurt people, but
Right.
I still had to survive the things that I was living around. So a lot of young people now are faced with the fact that they have to do things sometimes to survive that are not really a part of them. And so I'd learned how to kind of navigate and have a balance between the yin and yang to
Right.
allow myself to get old enough to understand some of my own issues and work through them.
Okay. 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 So, um, so you said, I guess, you seek counseling that's when you got older,
Right.
right?
Definitely.
So I guess before that, what kind of sparked you to kind of overcome that anger and that low self-esteem before you was able to get to the counseling? I know there had to been like a moment that kind of sparked you to kind of, transition over.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I would say one of the biggest things that made me want to do better
Mm-hmm.
was I knew I wanted better for my life.
Right.
I didn't necessarily know how to make it manifest. And then my mother always invested so much love and care into us as kids
Mm-hmm.
that I never wanted to disappoint her.
Okay.
So even with getting into some of the things that I got into, um, I just never wanted her to feel as if she wasn't appreciated because she went through a lot of changes to make things happen. And also my father did too. You
Mm-hmm.
know, my father, is I can't speak so much about his situations because he didn't talk about them as much.
Okay.
And that's the difference between him and was I was able to be able to communicate the things that was happening in my life
Right.
so that maybe as a man, I could end up a little bit better off than where he was when he was a father.
Right. Right. Okay. Okay. So I know when I first met you, like several years ago, you was working with kids, right?
Hmm.
And I guess you saw, I guess, firsthand, some of the things that they go through. Like I
Hmm.
remember when I was teaching, it was something that I was unaware of before I came into that space. That there's so much trauma that young people deal with that they bring to school, which kind of is like a hindrance for them learning because they got so many other things going on in their
Right.
heads that they can't focus in on what the teacher's teaching, or they're acting out because of all this anger and
Hmm.
things that's built up inside of them. And again, before I got into that space, I was totally unaware of all that stuff that was going on. I got to shout out all the teachers, right, that
Right.
work with
Right.
kids
Right.
every day.
They go through a lot.
Yeah, so it's more than just teaching. You wear like 10,000 hats in the classroom. So, um, based on your experience, right, from your personal experience and also your experience of working with children, right. So, for people who are, again, other people that's working with kids, what are like some tips that you can provide them to help them as they try to help other children work through their trauma and their anger and things of that sort?
So I had never had a formal way of like a structured way of working with kids as far as working in a particular business.
Mm-hmm.
But what I would do is the kids that I would come in contact with that I saw that was having issues, I would pull up on them, and I would, first of all, I would try to connect with them in some type of way, right?
Okay.
Whether it's a living condition, whether it's a way of learning, whether it's a favorite team, or I would speak to something that I saw them do.
Okay.
And be like, I can relate to that. I did that before. And a lot of times people look at who you are now and they'll say, you didn't do that. Right? And so they really don't have any idea, because what they're doing is they're looking at you now and they have no idea who you were. You know, I can't, even when I look back at some of the things I did, and I can't even believe I did them.
Right.
And so you see that growth in yourself over time. But I would just basically try to find something common that I may have that's relatable for that child. And then I would speak to that. And then I would really try to find out what was ailing this individual. Like, what is it that the child is going through? If I can find out that what that initial problem is right now with that child and give them some tools to be able to work through that. One of the biggest things is I wanted to always teach each kid how they could avoid situations that have nothing to do with them, right? Because you're always pulled into stuff that have absolutely nothing to do with you, and the power to speak your own mind and your own peace so that you can preserve your own safety is something that a lot of people don't utilize today, not even adults. And so I had to learn. One of the things that my mother taught me is she said, you're going to go out here with your friends and you're going to do all types of things, but you have to learn when you should walk away. And so that would always stick in my head. I would be outside. We'll go from playing to, like, you see the sunset, the street lights about to come on. Then after that, you get bored. You got this idle mind. And like your friend said, hey, let's go steal his car. Right?
Right.
And you like, damn, I got to roll. Because if I don't roll, right?
Cats look at you funny.
They look at you funny, right?
Yeah.
You know, the next thing you're like, you know, you're getting the derogatory names and they looking at you sideways.
Yep.
You scared, you this, you that. And the next day you had to come outside and deal with that.
Yep.
So in the beginning, I succumbed to the peer pressure.
Yeah.
Right? I took the joy rides and they were fun. Right? They were dangerous, but they were fun. And you don't have a concept of danger when you're that young.
Exactly.
And then some of my first ways of learning how to drive was joyriding in a car. And that's not something I want to glorify because I was scared to death, but I was foolish at the same time.
Yeah. And
if my mom knew it, the police wouldn't have to worry about picking me up because she probably would have got rid of me herself. You know? So I was doing that, and I got introduced to some of that stuff by my sister. My older sister had this guy that she was involved with. And I learned a lot of survival things from this guy that I wouldn't teach the other kids.
Okay.
But I was that kid that older guys would take to because I kind of knew what to talk about, what not to talk about, and when to talk about it. And so it was like I think that sense of wisdom came from how my dad was too. My dad would tell you, don't speak on things you don't know about. Don't put
Right.
your mouth in other people's business. So my dad taught me some survival skills early in life that I really didn't understand.
Okay.
And so even though there was a certain pressure from him, he was still instilling me with things as a like traits as a man that I needed to have, right? Um, he'll say, don't say things that you'll do if you're not willing to back it up.
Right.
Um, always treat people with respect. Never know what people are capable of. There's always somebody bigger and better. My mom and dad always said that to me. And so
Right.
I've always had healthy respect because also too, my dad would lay them paws on you. You do the wrong thing, you're gonna catch it, and it
Right.
won't always a belt.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that is the most healthy way to reprimand and correct your child, but
Right.
it made an impact on me.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I think it was like almost like a rites of passage. Like we all went through it during that day and time.
I'm
You
trying to
know.
tell you, I went through it. I went all the way through it. I think the
Yeah.
last whipping I had, I ran from it. He was so tired trying to catch me that he just went on and gave up.
Are you or your child interested in the performing arts? Let me introduce you to the Aikan Performing Arts Program. This program, founded by actor, director, writer, entrepreneur, and Philadelphia native Nakia Dillard, provides high-quality performing arts training to youth and adults in a safe, fun, friendly online environment. Since its inception in 2009, Aikan Performing Arts has reached over 1,000 students and workshop participants in the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area alone. Aikan Performing Arts founder, Nakia Dillard, has worked alongside some of the most recognized and influential names in the industry, such as Bill Duke, Jamie Foxx, Anthony Mackie, Wendell Pierce, Kerry Washington, and other notable performers. He has appeared in The Wire, Black Lightning, Law Abiding Citizens, and The Wonder Years. For more information about the Aikan Performing Arts Program, please see the link in the show notes below. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you this. So I guess with all that stuff that you've been through and, the different experiences when you were younger, like, how do you cope with anger and frustration now?
Well, that's a very good question. So the way I cope with anger is I understand that my anger stems from something.
Okay.
So when I'm triggered by a person or a situation, the first thing I ask myself is, why am I triggered? And I try to understand that.
Okay.
Now, first, too, I look at, am I in some immediate danger? Because anger is not always bad. Because you can use anger in the right way to protect yourself.
True.
You just have to be able to understand why you're angry and if anger is needed.
Right.
And so as I grow, I understand that anger has a place, but I'm responsible for how I use it. And so a lot of times when I was angry and I didn't use it the right way, I would instantly feel the repercussions of that because my conscience wouldn't allow me to live with my decision.
Okay.
So I exercise now, right? I exercise to get rid of that anger. I talk it out to people that I can trust.
Right.
If I need to talk to a therapist, I talk to a therapist. There's multiple things that I do. Sometimes just being outside in nature,
Yeah.
taking time to meditate, and I know that's kind of cliche. Everybody say they meditate now, but really it's something about being in nature, smelling fresh air. The other thing is kids need to find a safe place away from noise, right? So most times in most projects and neighborhoods, kids don't travel 5 to 10 miles outside of that neighborhood.
True.
They stuck in that same ecosystem the whole time. And so all they know is what's in that neighborhood.
Right.
So one of the most important things that happened in my life too was exposure. When I started getting exposure to other things and I had the opportunity to see what else was out there,
right,
that motivated me to kind of not want to get in trouble, because I knew once I got in trouble, there were certain things I couldn't do anymore.
Right.
Right. I wanted my freedom. I wanted to be able to enjoy my life. And so every move that I make, if it didn't go towards my overall goal, right? My overall goal was like peace, my freedom, to be able to enjoy my life, right?
Yeah.
If it didn't coincide with that, I didn't want no parts of it. So as I started to grow older, I started to navigate to those things that meant a lot more to me over the vanity.
Exactly.
Peace. Are you looking for a way to teach your kids about money management and responsibility? Look no further than the GreenLight card. The GreenLight card is a debit card for kids that parents can manage through an app, giving you complete control over where and how much your child spends. With the GreenLight card, you can start teaching your kids valuable financial lessons while earning rewards at the same time. For more information about GreenLight and to get started, please click the link in the show notes below. Thank you. Malik's First Job, Financial Principles for Teens, is an excellent resource to get your children started on understanding the basics of financial literacy. This book, which is set in Brownsville, Brooklyn, about a young man who gets his first job and then shortly thereafter sits down with his dad to learn how to manage his money. There are several topics that are covered within this work, such as paying yourself first, disciplining your spending, knowing the difference between an asset and a liability, creating multiple sources of income, as well as the importance of being charitable. So again, if you want to get your children started on understanding finance and becoming responsible adults, we highly recommend that you purchase the book, Malik's First Job, Financial Principles for Teens. So please visit maliksfirstjob.com to get more information. Peace.
You know, you see like a lot of people, like that neighborhood becomes their world, you know. I'm trying to remember, I know a friend of mine had a song, you know, back in the day, we was talking about people, you know, talk about, you know, I think that the lyric was like, you know, you talk about a world order where the furthest border you ever reached was the weed spot on the corner. Like you want to talk about all this stuff going on outside in the world, but you never live beyond your block, your own neighborhood.
Right.
You know. So, you know, like I said, yes, so many people who fall victim to that, you know, and it's important, as you said, to have your kids to be exposed, let them know the world is bigger than just the four corners in which they live on. You know, there's a whole world out there. And as you know, as things progress, it's like a whole universe that's out there as well. They got to be aware of.
True.
You know. So I guess with you writing the book, you know, how was writing the book, you know, was it like a therapy for you to help you release all that stuff that you had built up inside of you over the years?
Yeah. And so originally I was asked that question and I wasn't really sure if it was therapy or not.
Okay.
And then after I thought about it for a while, I recognized how much therapy it was.
Wow.
To be able to take the things that I had gone through on the inside and now put those things on paper.
Right.
Giving purpose to your pain would change your outlook about your own life and hopefully bless the life of somebody else, right?
Wow.
And I had been getting this same feeling of you need to tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, you know how it is. People get shot every day.
Right.
Right. So it's like, how's my life different?
Mm-hmm.
But the creator talk to you and say, it's different because I say it's different.
Wow.
And so the message that I tell may not reach somebody, but the message that you tell may.
Right.
And so just because somebody else wrote about their life and their tragedy doesn't mean that it's going to hit the person that the creator needed to hit.
Right.
And so it's necessary sometimes for you to tell your story.
Yeah.
Even if people done heard 1,000 stories like it.
Mm-hmm.
But like someone told me, you have a fingerprint of your own. That fingerprint is unique to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so is your life story. So just because everybody else has a fingerprint, don't mean that you can't use your fingerprint to change somebody's life.
Right.
And so as I started to grow and develop, I knew that it was necessary to share some of the things that I've gone through. And, you know, those things that I told are probably some of the most tragic ones, but not all of them, right? There's so many things that kids go through that the parents have no idea of, friends may not know, right? From walking home late at night by yourself at 12, 1 o'clock in the morning to being scared to death because, you know, people act hard. You are walking home like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You pick up some survival skills,
Oh,
but
yeah.
really the trauma that you pick up from just a walk home some days, like being on the block and you don't know if you're coming home at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of kids are dealing with that. They're going outside every day. And just because they want to be able to live, they're going out here, but they really don't know if they're coming back home.
Yeah.
And we're so used to trauma that we don't understand how crazy it is to live how we live sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. We normalize it
We
where it's
normalize
like, where it shouldn't be normal.
it shouldn't. And when you get distance from it, this is why exposure is really important. Because when you get distance away from the things that you have been through in life, time has no weight, right? You look at people talk about time, but distance is the real thing. When you can distance yourself from your problems, you can distance yourself away from your issues. It allows you to see your growth. It allows more opportunities. So when a lot of these kids are running into trouble, people need to help them make distance between our issues.
Okay.
That's the biggest thing. Like, as soon as a child has an issue, you have to be able to remove them from that situation, even if it's only for a small time. Because in that time period, you can change the perception and the outlook of that child's mind, right? And
Give them
also,
time to think.
yeah, and also alleviate them from that danger. Because that person that may want to do something to them for that moment may not want to do it tomorrow.
Right.
Or they may want to, right? You really don't know how that's going to play out, but you do the very best that you can. And so I see a young cat and he about to get into something. I said, listen, man, look, take a minute and walk with me.
Yeah.
Right? If you think about this and you still want to do it, then you go do it. Right? Just know that it comes with some consequences.
Yep.
And so I had to grow in that way because when I got shot, I wanted to retaliate. Right? That was when I was sexually abused, I wanted to retaliate. And you get to a point where you have to deal with your own pain. And so a lot of times what people do is, instead of growing through that pain, they take
Mhm.
that pain and they pass it on to the next person.
Right.
And I knew that if I could find a way to deal with my pain, then I could stop and not pass on the residue of my own issues onto the next person.
Right.
Right. And then something beautiful comes from that. Right. There's something that the creator shows you within yourself that makes you a greater value to your environment.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. So, what are like some of the key takeaways? I guess don't reveal everything, right?
Mhm.
But for someone that reads your book, what do you want them to take away from reading your book?
That you're going to go through many twists and turns in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that looks like a dead end is not a dead end. Sometimes it's just the end of a period in your life.
Mm-hmm.
When you lose friends, when you lose relationships, when you lose money, when you lose things, sometimes it's just a road to something else different.
Okay.
And so every twist and turn that you have in life leads to somewhere else. You have to be willing to take the ride to get there.
Right.
And so if you quit early and you give up on yourself, or you do something that changes your life that you cannot fix, then you'll never have the opportunity to see what you could possibly be or what you could create in the world around you.
Wow. Wow. That's facts. Facts right there. Facts. Facts. So, for people that want to get more information, I guess where can they find you online?
So my Instagram is live love work on Instagram, and then on Facebook you can just look me up, Matthew Mealy, Matthew Mealy, Mealy.
Mm-hmm.
And my Gmail, if somebody want to reach out, is Matt Mealy Mealy. And you reach out to me if there's some type of word that I can give you or help you in some type of way by speaking with you. I'd be happy to do so. I just want to see people grow in a positive way, the same way I've been afforded the same opportunity.
No doubt. No doubt. And for folks that want to check your book out, where can they find it?
So you can go to Amazon, and it's Peace from Broken Pieces. So you may see another book with a similar title, but so this, you will look, this is just a test copy of my book, but the page will look like this. It'll be a gloss page. So it'll look similar to this.
Okay.
And, you can find it on Amazon at this time. That's the only place that I've been offering the book for sale. And it's been great just being able to go through the process of creating my own.
Yeah.
When you
There's
do that,
nothing
it's
like
something different about that.
Yes, there's nothing like it. It's like, giving birth to a child. You're like, this is my baby,
Yeah.
And, all the work that you put, because I know it's like hours of writing and editing and then the final. I remember when I first got my book and they sent me the test copy and I was like, this is it. It's like a certain feeling that you get, and now with it being available and you're able to offer it to other people and people get to read it and provide feedback, I guess, it's hard to describe the feeling.
It's like your book. So Malik's first job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And writing that book, I know in your head is like the first thing you start to say is, what gives me the ability to be able to write this book and feel like that I have something to give to someone else, because you know yourself. And so the things you look at in yourself, you look at as being average.
Right.
And so you have to get past that to know that you really have something to offer. And so you have to trust the process.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just had to write it and say, you know what? I'm going to present what I think I have of value.
Mm-hmm.
And whether someone can use it or not, has nothing to do with you, right? You just have to do it and trust the process. And I was scared as hell, right? I'm telling you, to put your life out there and write it down and talk about all these things. I had people say, well, if you talk about sexual abuse, you know, people gonna look at you strange. And I said, they're gonna look at me strange because they're going through some stuff that they don't want to deal with. Right? Or they're going through some stuff that they don't want somebody to know, or they might be one of the weird people doing it. Right? And so for me, I want to bring that stuff to light so that if I can help another child or if I can help another adult heal from these things, because really we're not our pain, right? We're really not our pain. We're really much more than that. But if the pain can suppress us, it will. But also the pain can help you in your growth process. But you have to be willing to accept the process of growth, right? And growing, it hurts. It hurts like hell. But also not growing hurts also.
Yeah.
So, and I know you recognize that when you went through doing your book as well.
Oh yeah. It's a process.
Yeah, it's definitely a
process. Overcoming the self-doubt and the what they call it?
Self-defeating mindset.
The imposter syndrome. You know, thinking like, who am I to, put this out and write this information? So
but
you
have more value to give to the world than you think.
Yeah.
And I think the more you communicate with people with like minds, with similar stories, you find the value in how those individuals overcame their own obstacles, right? It's not so much about the trauma itself, but how was this individual able to navigate it? Right? That's something that you just can't pull out of thin air. That's wisdom because this person had to live through this. And it may not work for you that way because your travel is going to be totally different. It's going to be totally different. And so the process of life and the process of growth is totally different for each person. Even though many people have lived lives, many people have gone through trauma, but none of the stories are alike.
Yeah. Each one is different.
Each one is different. And that's why your walk, your story, and everything is so important to other people because there's nothing like you.
Yeah. You never know who it may touch. Because let's say for instance, me and you write the same book, write a book about the same topic.
Right.
The way I may tell a story one way, you may tell a story a different way, but you may touch someone else with your story that someone that read my book may not, it's like it's individual.
Right.
And people connect with things a different way.
Right.
So that's why, as you said earlier, it's important for us to all tell our stories because you never know who you may touch.
Never know.
Who you may impact, with that information.
Yeah. And if we save one life, save one life and encourage one person, we've done a lot. Because that one person is attached to another 2 or 3. That other 2 or 3 is connected to another 10 or 12. And that 10 or 12 is connected to hundreds. And that hundreds is connected to thousands.
Exactly.
And so if we just can look at what we can do on the smallest level, I think if we start focusing on that one small premise, there's so much more that we can accomplish in our community too.
Oh man, you hit it right on the head. All right, and I think we're gonna close with that.
No doubt.
We're gonna close with that. But I appreciate you coming on.
Yes,
sharing your story. Again, for those that want to purchase the book, it's called Peace from Broken Pieces, and there's going to be a link in the show notes that's going to take you directly to the Amazon link. So go ahead and support this brother. You can reach out to him on Instagram, Facebook. Live, Love, Work on Instagram, or look him up as Matthew Mealy on Facebook. All right. So again, Matt, thank you very much for taking the time and sharing your story and your wisdom with my audience. I'm sure someone's going to take something away from your message.
I hope so. I appreciate you, man. Thanks a lot.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And again, thank you all for joining us today on the Malik's First Job podcast. And I'll see y'all next week. Peace.
Generational wealth.